Hello, this is Just Listen, hosted by George. Today is 29 April 2024. Welcome. Today I want to talk about the federal government policy on free speech, and specifically with that, these campus demonstrations that are going on in a couple of the colleges across the country and in maybe 4 or 5 states. And the reason I characterize that is that, as always, when the news is relayed from the media, they keep saying that it's across the country and the impact is more impactful than it really is. Why did I spin it like that immediately? Well, I went and looked up a couple of things. So in academic year 2021 and 2022, there were only 485 Palestinian students in the United States studying. And actually, if you go back further to a year or two prior, there was even less of them on college campuses. If you look at the Palestinian community in the United States, it's only 170,000 people in general. The reason that that's important for the campus is that it appears to me that the people protesting aren't necessarily Palestinians. So then you have to think about, well, what's the motive of them doing that? But that would be a separate show. So today I want to focus on the campuses, and I want to talk about, is this the same as the protests that we had during Vietnam or any protest in any war? Who are these students? I kind of alluded to that. What about the Palestinians and protesting the war against their government? And then immigration to the U.S. and Europe. So let's talk about the first one. Is it the same as the Vietnam and normal protests against war? I don't think that it is, just based on the circumstances and who the players are. If you are on an American campus on a visa and you're protesting a war in your home nation that your own people started, that seems a little offbeat to me to why you would want to protest on an American campus in the first place. And I talked about who these people are. And if you do a Google search, it's hard to figure out who's actually doing the protests. Like I said, with Vietnam, I think that was different. It was Americans protesting American policy in another country where the aggressors weren't the ones who started the war in the first place. So it's totally different. Now, let me be upfront and say, peaceful protests, I'm all for that. And as a matter of fact, the U.S. government policy says that they have the right to peacefully protest and assemble. But this is part of the Constitution, and this is for Americans. It's not for students on visas in the country. You might say, well, okay, anybody can protest it. Yes. Then why do they have encampments at Columbia University and they're refusing to leave unless the government makes Israel do the ceasefire? And that's all I'm going to say about that, because that goes into a whole different area. All right. Who are these students? on these campuses. We really don't know. And based on what I told you earlier, if the Palestinians, are they on visa? Are the Palestinian Americans? We really don't know. And if you look at the news, it seems like there's a significant amount of people, especially in New York City. And again, why are they protesting? Because it seems like to me that they don't really have a stake in it. If they're just against war, then that needs to be stated by them. That's not what they're saying. They are saying that they want Israel to stop their offensive in Palestine. So the next one is, what about the Palestinians and protesting the war against their government? Well, you could probably hear crickets on that one, because as far as I've seen, the Palestinians are protesting us helping out the Israelis, and I haven't seen anybody protest Hamas and ask them to immediately release those hostages. And why is that important? Because it proves what a great nation we are. We are very tolerant, even though the law in this case works in our favor, that we could probably deport the Palestinian students on visas, or if they're from other countries on visas who are protesting. We could actually do that. That's legal. We haven't done that yet because we in the United States try to be tolerant of everyone else. Yet, in Palestine, they say nothing unless it's against the adversary. Even the Israelis are protesting their government's action. There's not a lot of them, but at the end of the day, when they were told to go and fight, they did it. The Israelis got together and they went after the common foe. Now, let me talk a little bit about immigration. I keep bringing it up, and this is important. Why do you think that a lot of Europeans, countries, and countries like Norway, Finland, Australia have such strict laws on immigration? It's for this reason, especially when you're dealing with the Arabian Peninsula. It's very interesting that the students who come over, well, all of a sudden, when stuff happens in Arabia, they'll start protesting, because I can't call it peaceful assembly, because they get very angry and forceful. Forceful is a good word, I think. And this has been across the board. They used to do it in France. Well, France started making it so that people could not immigrate from that region for that reason. And of course, they make it so that it's anybody trying to come into the country. And you can see why when you have students on visa protesting without any facts that they have. The other thing to think about is this. How about the timing of these protests at the college university? Seems like the more offensively, ground-wise, that Israel makes, it seems like the strategy is to disrupt in the United States to make us compel Israel to do stuff. And I don't think it was a coincidence to when they started the protests. Because once the offensive started from Israel, all of a sudden they started doing it. Now, I'm not saying that they are coordinating with anyone, but it's very strange that the timing was like it was. This college protest is important for the U.S. because the circumstances are totally different. And it seems like that when you let people immigrate to your country from Arabia, and Arabia is who we're talking about, whenever you have an American policy, they seem to go against it no matter what the circumstances are. And we see these disruptions time and time again. And the best example is that encampment that these students are using to get the U.S. to change its policy. And it's a tightrope for the government because the law is on their side, but sometimes you can't act. And quite frankly, I think moving forward, we need to scrutinize people coming from Arabia to U.S. colleges. And oh, by the way, the colleges make a lot of money with students studying from abroad. It's a big money maker for them. And you cannot Google that because that would be hard to find. I used to teach at a university, and I was at several meetings because the university I was at, they were trying to get foreign students in for that reason. They get a lot of money when they come over to our colleges. So this is George. This is Just Listen. Let me know what you think.